Hello, greetings. Welcome to another question and answer session brought to you by Path of the Just Ministries. Today's question comes from Salvador Gomez. Can you explain or can you answer the following question with the Bible spirit of prophecy? If those that preach the trumpets to have another fulfillment in the future have stepped away from the foundation of our faith, why does that not apply to those who preach that the 10 toes are not divided Rome but the UN? So we hold to the position that what the pioneers taught concerning the trumpets is true, but as far as the 10 toes of Daniel chapter 2 on the 1843 chart and 1850 chart, we say that is future. What gives us license to say that and yet still be on the foundation and not have apostatized from the truth? Well, when we look at the 1843 chart, we understand that they really believed that Jesus was coming in 1843, 1844, and that the end of the world was nigh. And if Jesus would have come at that time, then surely we would not even have to consider whether the United Nations plays a role in prophecy, in defeat of iron and also miry clay. We would all be in heaven today. The fact of the matter is that the pioneers did not understand that all of the history that Daniel 2 speaks about was not yet completely fulfilled in their day. And so in the trumpets that we understand, we're still living in the days of the voice and the sounding of the seventh angel. And so as time continues to progress and play out and these events are fulfilled, we're able to have greater and more perfect light. Now, I want you to consider a statement with me concerning why it is that we're looking at the iron and the clay, churchcraft and statecraft, those 10 toes, why we would say that they would be the United Nations today. Now, I want you also to remember with me that when we study Daniel chapter 2, we have to study it with Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 8, Daniel chapter 10 through 12. Each of the other three visions of Daniel that come after chapter 2 repeat and enlarge and give explanation. Now, you remember that in order for the papacy to rise to power, in order to rule the world for 1260 years, remember that out of those 10 horns, in Daniel chapter 7, 3 had to be plucked up by the roots. The Hurlide, the Ostrogoths, and also the Vandals had to be removed. And so that would take away 3, which would only leave really 7. And of course, this is the old Western Roman Empire. So really, if we go back historically, there weren't 10 that were standing. By 538, there was really only 7 that are left. Now, when we consider this passage, notice what she says here. Now, this is her comments on Daniel chapter 2 concerning the iron and the clay, churchcraft and statecraft. We have come to a time when God's sacred work is represented by the feet of the image in which the iron was mixed with the miry clay. God is a people, a chosen people whose discernment must be sanctified, who must not become unholy by laying upon the foundation wood, hay, and stubble. Every soul who is loyal to the commandments of God will see that the distinguishing feature of our faith is the 7-day Sabbath. If the government would honor the Sabbath as God has commanded, it would stand in the strength of God and in defense of the faith once delivered to the saints. But statesmen will uphold the spurious Sabbath and will mingle their religious faith with the observance of this child of the papacy, placing it above the Sabbath which the Lord has sanctified and blessed, setting it apart for man to keep holy as a sign between him and his people to 1,000 generations. The mingling of churchcraft and statecraft is represented by the iron and the clay. This union is weakening all the powers of the churches. This investing the church with the power of the state will bring evil results. Men have almost passed the point of God's forbearance. They have invested their strength in politics and have united with the papacy. But the time will come when God will punish those who have made void his law, and their evil work will recoil upon themselves. Now, there's no question or no doubt that this is pointing to the history of when Sunday legislation will be enforced by the dragon, the beast and the false prophet, the threefold union of modern Babylon. She says, we have come to a time where God's sacred work is represented in the image's feet. Now, when did she write that? If you go back to that statement, that was 1899. How many years is 1899 after 1843 and 1844? Well, this is almost at least half a century or more. So inspiration has said that we have now come to that time. In 1843 and 1844, we did not come to that time where churchcraft and statecraft was coming together in order to force a national Sunday law. In fact, to say that in 1843 and 1844, when America was still a very youthful nation and still very much Protestant and very much anti-Catholic, not only in religion, but even in politics, would to be fantastical. It would be ludicrous. But today, we know that we have definitely come to that time period where churchcraft and statecraft are coming together. And so this is the reason why when we come down to the feet of iron and clay, we understand that not only do we have church and state with apostate Protestantism, church and state with the papacy, but also church and state with the dragon power or the United Nations, which of course is not just a political power, but also has a spiritual and religious agenda as well. And so this is the reason why we say that today that the 10 toes there can also apply to the UN with the papacy and also the United States of America. Remember, Daniel 2:44 and 45 says when it describes churchcraft and statecraft coming together, mingling themselves with the seed of men through fornication, but they will not cleave one to another. Even as iron is not mixed with clay, or cleave thereof, remember that it says in verse 44, in the days of these kings, God shall set up his kingdom. Now, did God set up his kingdom in 508, 538, 1798, 1840, 1843? 1844 perhaps might be the earliest date, according to Daniel 7:13 to 14, when Christ goes in to receive his kingdom. But we understand that according to inspiration, it is during the time period when those four winds are let loose, those winds of strife. This is when God will indeed set up his kingdom. You and I are living in the time period where God is setting up his kingdom and he's looking for subjects, and we have to choose whether or not we'll be the subjects of righteousness or the subjects of unrighteousness and sin. We hope that this has helped to answer your question. And as always, may your eyes be enlightened as you've tasted a little of this honey. The reference that we read from concerning churchcraft and statecraft, which was written in 1899, where we have now come to that time, is found in Manuscript Releases, Volume 1, page 51, paragraph 1.